So tell me, during the journey, the bit I'm interested in, so you've had this great journey, you've come up with these incredible results, it's world-beating by any stretch of imagination. We've got a great culture that we will never accept is as good as it can be, so we work on it every day. Give me some examples, if you have any, where you felt, oh, this is really, really tough. You know, is there any particular examples where you think, yeah, I'm not sure I've got this right, or shit, this is more difficult than I thought it was, or Jesus, I never expected those barriers. At what point did you were there any points where you wobbled and you thought, wow, am I really getting this right?
Oh, there were many times when, I went into my office, shut the door, put my head in my hands and said, holy hell, what are we going to do here? But that's when I went and sought out those that were around me. Of course, if you lead a company for 25 years, we went through a number of economic cycles. We went through, the Asian crisis, wars here, this, that, there, and uncertainty is a series of future events that may or may not occur. And I think what we need to do is ensure that uncertainty doesn't paralyze us. So, there were times. But, I'll give you an example of how values in an organization can be very powerful. Our second value is we value creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. And I went into a meeting one morning, and there was someone in that meeting, a senior member of my team, who was not creating positive, lasting memories. They'd had a really bad morning. It was one of those meetings, I'm sure you and our people that are with us today have been in a meeting where someone starts just sucking the oxygen out of the room because of the way they behave. So, what do you do as a leader? Well, you got a couple of options, Jeff. Option one is you kind of pause the meeting and say, Jeff, that behavior is unacceptable. You need to pull your head in and, stop disrupting the meeting. Don't do that, because everyone else in the room says, when am I going to get publicly assassinated by the boss? And the person in the room doesn't gain any benefit of it. Second thing is you can do nothing. And now that's a toxin just got into the culture dish, right? Yep. What we're really saying is that behavior is acceptable. So at the end of the meeting, I'll call him Jeff. I said, Jeff, let's go for a walk. So we walked out of our building, and I started to look under a car and in a trash can and behind a tree. And Jeff says to me, what the hell are you doing? I said, Jeff, I'm looking for you. The you I know and love was not in that room today. What's on your mind? What's getting in your way? And that opened our conversation. And I said, Jeff, what our value is of creating positive, lasting memories. And I'm going to tell you, you didn't create too many in there this morning. So let's talk. So I think to answer your question about when it was tough, the toughest times were when you had to deal with people, but you did it with love and care. And that's why I said most people protect their own comfort zone at the expense of someone else's development. I could have walked out of there and done nothing. And that would have just put some toxin in that petri dish. So I think the toughest times were making those tough calls on people, but being brave enough to be able to say, I truly care about you. That's why I need to have this conversation with you, because I want you to win. I want you to get an A.
That's the thing that frightens most people, even managers, when you're trying to bring managers through the process. It's that fear of conflict, and conflict in a positive way rather than conflict in a negative way. Conflict is not about reprimanding somebody. Conflict is about having a difficult conversation, which is less difficult when it's delivered with care and empathy, right? Because you show vulnerability, and the vulnerability gives you a superpower, which means the person that you're talking to suddenly says, well, I now want to look after you. And you create this safe environment to have that conversation, don't you? It is that empathy and vulnerability.
Have you ever met this person?
No.
This is Al, or Alice, the soul-sucking CEO of Fear Inc. So I invented this there's big owls over on my shoulder.
Oh, I can see, yeah.
So I invented this person as the person I talk about, who as a leader has toxic behaviors. So, Al is corporate royalty. I've spent my life climbing up the corporate ladder. I'm going to have that big office, and you're going to bring me tea in the morning. Al's a micromanager, wants to be in everything. Al's always right, whether they're right or wrong. Al always has the answer. And Al's ego eats his empathy instead of his empathy eating his ego. And Al hates feedback. So Al, or Alice, the soul-sucking CEO or the soul-sucking leader, is the person that really creates this environment. So when I go out speaking, I take Al with me and give him away or give her away to people in the audience. And as I'm talking about, people nod. They know Al, or Alice. So
no, it's a great way of articulating the story, right? Because that's one of the biggest things that leaders have a problem with. Is they know how they feel, they know what they want to do, but they don't know how to articulate it, which then becomes transmissible, which then helps to grow the environment in which you're operating. But it's a fascinating subject, and I think there's more and more people now considering perhaps behaving differently, realizing that it isn't about knowing it all, realizing that it isn't about command and control. But I think there needs to be more people like you and I and people like us that need to help businesses move at a faster pace, because when you call it the Great Escape, I refer to it as a Great Resignation only because that was a recognised term. And I said in my keynotes, what caused the Great Resignation? And you have a load of people come out and go, because people were greedy and they want more money and all these other stuff going on. And then then we get to the end of it, I say, no, this is what caused the Great Resignation. And then up comes a slide with a load of people masking it with COVID. Why do we think COVID caused it? And then people come out and sell these things. And then I put up the final slide and there's just people doing this, thinking. So what COVID done was it gave the entire population something they'd never had before, time to think. It gave them time to reflect on their lives, what they thought was important, what should be important. And when you then look at a Gallup survey that says 80% of people across the globe do not want to be in their job, that means we've got a big problem, right?
Absolutely.
We as leaders, we as businesses have got a big problem, right? And we've got to start looking in the mirror.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of things too. I mentioned I was, with Ken Blanchard yesterday, and we were in the golf cart, and we were talking about the book that he and I wrote together in 2009, which is a book called Don't Mark My Paper, or Helping People Win at Work. And the tagline is, Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A. And we were talking about how today it is even more relevant than ever, because it's really around, we are there to help people get A's, not mark their papers. The problem is with the leaders where there's conflict, it's because there's not clarity around what we expect from each other. Yeah. So we're going to always let people down if we don't have clarity around what we expect from each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes those conversations that you referenced, Jeff, really difficult, because the other person, well, no, I didn't understand it to be like that. No. So, leaders, people who lead people need to be very sure that they've really defined what an A looks like. Then your job as a leader is to help the person you're leading get that A, not to mark their paper.